YouTube, this is Raven. I just wanted to give an update on my swamp cooler that I made a couple years ago, just to show you that it's still working after several years. So, I needed a swamp cooler that doesn't use very much power because I live off-grid here in the desert, and I decided to build one myself because I couldn't really find a very good option for it. So I built this out of two of those plastic crates, some evaporative cooler pad, a fountain pump. You can see the pump down there at the bottom. So there's the pump, and a bit of PVC pipe to make a ring that goes around the top. I made a video on this before, but I decided to give you guys an update to show you that it's still working, and to talk about a few things you can do to maximize the potential of a swamp cooler like this. So this only uses about 60 to 70 watts of power, which is about a tenth of what a standard air conditioner uses for a small room. And here we can see the temperature. If I can focus on that. So the temperature outside is 98 degrees at 1% humidity, which is extremely dry. So you can adjust the angle on this thermometer a bit. The temperature inside is 75 degrees at 35% humidity. So not only does this drastically decrease the temperature of this tiny house I live in, it also humidifies it, which is something that I really need out here in the desert. So yeah, I just wanted to show you how well it works. Now, to give you a few tips, if you're going to use a cooler like this, you really want to make sure that you turn it on in the morning before it gets too hot, because it is much easier to cool down it is much easier to maintain a temperature than it is to cool it down further. So, if you want to maintain the temperature, you really need to turn the cooler on before it gets to above 75 degrees. So I watch the temperature outside in the morning, and when this gets to above 75 degrees, then I go ahead and I turn the cooler on. And you also need to make sure that you crack a window open so that the humidity doesn't get too high in the room. You want to make sure the humidity stays below 50%, but ideally around 36 to 40%. That is a good number. So in the 30s is ideal. Alright, so you need to make sure that you turn the cooler on before it gets too hot, and then I run it until the sun goes down and until the outside temperature is below 80 degrees. Once the outside is below 80 degrees, I can go ahead and turn the cooler off. Now, I live in the desert, which is nice because it gets cold at night. There's nothing really to hold the heat other than the dirt, and the dirt will radiate that heat fairly quickly. So once the sun goes down, the temperature drops here from about 98 degrees, like it is now, to sometimes below 50 degrees in the summer. So it'll be like 48 degrees. Let's see what it was last night. This keeps the low. Actually, I think it keeps the low for the week, and that was probably the temperature when I stuck the thermometer in the refrigerator. So last I checked, it got to about 48 degrees a couple nights ago. So usually it's in the low 50s or low 60s at night, but that's still plenty cold. And at night I open up all the windows to let the cold air in. And what that does is it makes it so I have a cold house to start out with before the sun comes up. Then when the sun comes up, I just turn the cooler on, and it keeps it cool all day. Now the temperature will gradually rise from in the 60s to sometimes to about 80 degrees, but it rarely gets hotter than 80 degrees. Yesterday it was 104 outside, and it only got up to 80 degrees inside. So, and that was only for a brief moment, for an hour or so. For the rest of the day, it was in a comfortable zone in the 70s. So my house is very small, and it's only It's only about 150 square feet, maybe 160 square feet. It's a very small house. It's a bit messy right now, so forgive me for that. But anyway, I just wanted to give you all an update to show you that the swamp cooler is still working great. And for those of you that haven't seen my previous video, I just want to show you how the cooler actually works. So it's just a window fan, nothing fancy, and has a fountain pump and some what are they called? Swamp cooler pads that are strapped on there. They do get a bit dirty, so you need to clean them once in a while, spray it off with a hose or something. And it has this PVC pipe that goes up here with some holes drilled around the sides here. And those holes simply soak the pad and keep it nice and wet. And you need to make sure that this fits snugly against your window fan, so it's not blowing cold, hot air in. And even when it's in the high 90s, it'll be blowing the air. If you measure the temperature, it's going to be in the 60s. So it keeps the whole house relatively cool.